afternoon, good evening, and good night. This is Cheesesteaks and Controllers, episode number 81, presented by Fox PHO The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, and iHeartRadio, also found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. I am your host, Jason Finelli, the esports and gaming insider for Fox PHO The Gambler, and oh boy, do we have something to talk about this week. It has been a rather crazy week in the world of video games, not gonna lie. There was a seismic move that happened on Tuesday. This was supposed to be a short holiday week with nothing going on. Supposed to be, a nice, calm sort of post-holiday 4-day week, and then maybe next week we'll get into the big stuff, but two major companies said, nay, we're going to make this one of the craziest weeks in video game history. And because of that, we're not going to do a 6 and 60 seconds this week because there's really no need to. There is one big story for the week, and we're going to talk about that. But because we're not doing the 6 and 60 seconds, I still want to acknowledge the sponsor for Cheesesteaks and Controllers that I read after every 6 and 60 seconds, and that is Ghost Shaver. The Ghost Shaver is designed to feel like an extension of your arm, allowing the user to reach anywhere on the head, face, or body. The precision cutting system gives a close and smooth shave every single time, thanks to 5 rotary flex action, super thin blades, and a patented handle design that fits into the palm of your hand precisely. Go to ghostshaver.com to check things out and get yours. That's Ghost Shaver, a shave above the rest. Now, let's get into the news of the week. The big story and what we're going to spend 2/3 of our show talking about this evening. So it's, 8 o'clock on Tuesday morning. Just having those first sips of coffee after getting the girls situated. The girls were home all week. My wife and girls were home all week with the thing, but that's another story. And I'm scrolling through Twitter, and I'm doing my day job, and I'm seeing what's going on. And all of a sudden, news starts to break. Jason Schreier, formerly of Kotaku, now of Bloomberg, puts out a tweet that says the Wall Street Journal is reporting a major acquisition in the world of video games. And the rumor mill starts to churn, and Twitter starts to light up, and things are getting crazy, and everyone's getting excited. And then, at 8:25 a.m. Eastern on Tuesday, January 18th, a blog post at news.xbox.com hit, written by Phil Spencer, the CEO of Microsoft Gaming. There was a restructure because of this as well, but we'll get to that. Called, "Welcoming the incredible teams and legendary franchises of Activision Blizzard to Microsoft Gaming." Oh man, were the doors blown off of my expectations for the rest of the week. This is a monumental shift in the world of video games. This is a $68.7 billion bombshell dropped at 8:30 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. The blog goes to read, this is Phil Spencer, CEO of Microsoft Gaming's, his words. It says, "As a team, we are on a mission to extend the joy and community of gaming to everyone on the planet. We all know that gaming is the most vibrant and dynamic form of entertainment worldwide, and we've experienced the power of social connection and friendship that gaming makes possible. As we pursue that mission, it is incredibly exciting to announce that Microsoft has agreed to acquire Activision Blizzard." Now, this is the Bethesda deal from last year on Olympic-level steroids. This is one of, if not the most influential and important announcements in video game history, without hyperbole. The ripple effects of this are already being felt from multiple angles, but they will continue to be felt for a very big length of time. Phil continues. Over many decades, the studios and teams that make up Activision Blizzard have earned vast wellsprings of joy and respect from billions of people all over the world, but not their own employees. We'll get to that. We are incredibly excited to have the chance to work with the amazing, talented, dedicated people across Activision Publishing, Blizzard Entertainment, Beenox, Demonware, Digital Legends, High Moon Studios, Infinity Ward, King, Major League Gaming, Radical Entertainment, Raven Software, Sledgehammer Games, Toys for Bob, Treyarch, and every other team across Activision Blizzard. The deal will close at the latest June 2023, and then Xbox can start to do what they will. There have been interviews that have come out since from both sides. Phil Spencer talking about some of the franchises he would like to resurrect, like King's Quest, Hexen, which is owned by Raven. Bobby Kotick, this is the CEO of Activision, an all-around jerk, basically, doing the corporate PR speak and saying that they were able to be purchased like this because of delays of Overwatch 2 and Diablo 4, not because of the fact that he is an absolute monster and his company was being dragged through the coals for all the things that they were doing to their employees. But again, I digress. And it's just been a very interesting couple days on social media. And there are a couple of very prevalent questions that had come out in the wake of this announcement. The first one involved Bobby Kotick, what's going to happen to him. And it's basically that once this deal is finalized, he's out. It sounds like he's going to take his money and run. The golden parachute numbers that were shown around were pretty exorbitant, but now there is hope that he might not get that money just because of it has to be fired or let go or laid off or what have you for that money to be paid to him. So if he just stays on for the rest of his tenure, then he may not get that money, which is awesome. Screw him, basically. There's really no other way to say it without me getting really upset for the people that have worked under him and his crowd and the things that have gone on. It's just awful, and I don't want to be mad about it tonight. But if you want to know more, look it up and just be prepared to be very, very angry. But that was the first big question. And once that was out of the way, people started to think about, so what does that mean for the franchises that Activision Blizzard controls? And thanks to one of the editors at GameSpot, I'm not an editor, but one of my peers at GameSpot, Steve Watts, he wrote an article on GameSpot called "Every Activision Blizzard Franchise Microsoft Will Own in This Huge Acquisition Deal." This does not talk about these are just like current games or games that are more fresh in the head of gamers right now. If you go to Stephen Totilo, former Kotaku, now Axios, he put a tweet out at 4:20 p.m. on Tuesday, talking about some of the older things that might be able to be made now that this is going through. Like I said, the aforementioned Hexen, also Heretic, all the old Sierra games like King's Quest and Space Quest and stuff like that, Rock and Roll Racing and Lost Vikings, the actual Warcraft series instead of just World of Warcraft. Things like that. But then getting into the more prevalent series, you have on the Activision side Call of Duty, which should be a line by itself, Crash Bandicoot, Guitar Hero, Spyro the Dragon, and Tony Hawk. For Blizzard, you have Diablo, Hearthstone, Overwatch, StarCraft, and World of Warcraft. And for King, which we haven't even gotten into yet, King, Bubble Witch Saga, Diamond Diaries, Farm Heroes, Pet Rescue, and Candy Crush is now will be a Microsoft property. That is a who's who of third-party publishing games from the last decade or more in this industry now being under Microsoft's umbrella. And from that thought then came a couple of questions. Which of these games will be added to Game Pass, both on PC and console? How many of them will also be playable on the cloud version? When will they start to show up? Just how diverse and immense is Game Pass about to get thanks to all of these? Are they going to somehow have the first ever Crash Bandicoot outside of the Insane trilogy on Game Pass? Are they going to bring out all of the Call of Duties that were ever made and put them on Game Pass? Will the old Guitar Hero suddenly become backwards compatible somehow on the Series X? Will there a new Guitar Hero come out with all of the old library of music or whatever they still have the rights to? Diablo on Game Pass 1, 2, and 3 is an interesting proposition. Overwatch and Overwatch 2, who knows what's going on there? World of Warcraft, a World of Warcraft subscription coming with PC for Game Pass would be the best thing for that MMO in years, if you ask me. So all those questions were coming up, and then the attention turned to, specifically in one franchise's case, what remains of Call of Duty? Will Call of Duty, one of the most prolific gaming franchises of all time, and mostly since 2007 with Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare by Infinity Ward, will Call of Duty become an Xbox and PC exclusive and no longer available on PlayStation consoles? It's an unfathomable, I can't even say it. It is impossible to think of a world where Call of Duty is not on every console. And Phil Spencer actually addressed this in a tweet just today, the 20th of January, saying that he had good calls this week with leaders at Sony and confirmed their intent to honor all existing agreements upon acquisition of Activision Blizzard and our desire to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation. Sony is an important part of our industry, and we value our relationship. My first thought reading this tweet is that one of two things is going to happen. One of them is that Call of Duty will indeed no longer be a PlayStation game. It'll be a Xbox and PC exclusive, and that's just what'll happen. And the fans of excuse me, the PlayStation fans of Call of Duty are just going to have to deal. The other way to do this, which was originally proposed by Jeff Grubb over at GamesBeat, and has actually seemed more and more and more possible with more time, and the more I think about it, the more it sinks into my head, and that is Xbox Game Pass available on PlayStation 5, which sounds absurd. Don't get me wrong, it does, but the idea is not as crazy as it seems. And what he says here is the idea, this is Jeff Grubb on GamesBeat talking right now, and he says the idea of PlayStation allowing Xbox Game Pass onto its console might seem impossible, but why? Electronic Arts has its EA Play subscription service on PlayStation, and you can subscribe to Netflix on your iPhone right next to its own Apple TV. These companies are competing, but they are not actually in a fight. They don't win if the other loses. They win if they make more money tomorrow than they did yesterday. And there's a phenomenon in economics that suggests the best way to keep up with your competitors is to set up shop right next door to them. That's why you see things like Jewelers Row in Philadelphia and the Auto Mall and things like that. This concept is potentially even more viable in the content wars. Sony services could benefit from appearing next to Xbox services on a PlayStation. On top of this, it would turn PlayStation 5 into the only place where you could get both PlayStation and Xbox games on day one, meaning that it could widen the gap between PlayStation 5 sales and Xbox Series X sales, because at that point, Xbox Series X would become sort of redundant, unless there was some sort of perk to playing the games on Xbox specifically. He also says that Sony should act on this sooner rather than later, because today it holds a lot of bargaining chips, with Call of Duty making a lot of money on PlayStation and PS5 sales not slowing down. Sony could dictate strong terms for revenue sharing and what games could actually appear on a PlayStation version of Xbox Game Pass. For example, they could demand that Xbox limit it to only first-party games. So Xbox Game Pass on PlayStation 5 only being Xbox first-party titles, like Halo or Forza or stuff like that. But he also says Sony's position will likely only diminish over time, and that it could have the best deal today, but a few years from now, Sony could find itself having to let Microsoft determine more of the parameters of the deal. When I first read that article, I was aghast. I was like, how could you suggest that? That sounds very silly. The two companies would never go for it. But now that I've simmered on it for a while, it does make sense, doesn't it? It does make sense, that whole, putting all the mattress stores on one corner, as he put as an example in his article. But I mentioned like the Auto Mall or Jewelers Row or stuff like that. It does sort of make sense. Do I think it's going to happen? No. I think it's a small possibility. But is it a good idea? At least something to consider? Yeah. I would say that. I would say that it's definitely something to consider, putting Xbox Game Pass on PlayStation. And again, that may sound so foreign to people. It may sound so backwards. But at the end of the day, it would make sense for both companies. Because as he said, they're not competing against each other anymore. It's a whole different sort of environment. And the only thing you have to do is make more money than you did the day before. And having a place where the only place where PlayStation and Sony game and Xbox games can be found on one console, being that console, would be huge. So we'll see what goes on there. But I think the one facet of this that I think I want to talk about the most, real quick before we go to segment number 2, is mobile. As I mentioned, King is the mobile developer that makes Candy Crush Saga and all of its other Saga games. And they are part of this too. And Xbox has never really done well in the mobile sector. For a while there, they were focused on Windows Phone. And because they were focused on Windows Phone, they were making exclusives for that and just trying to put everything on the one phone, and the environment was not good. And there's a reason they don't exist today. When I think of Windows Phone games, I can think of two. One was Wordament, which was a word-based puzzle game that was kind of like a Words with Friends sort of competitor that was exclusive to the Windows Phone. And then Halo Spartan Assault, which eventually became released on consoles. That's it. They're the only Xbox first-party mobile games I can think of. But now they have not only a whole studio that does nothing but mobile games in King, including one of the most successful mobile games on the planet, they also have at least two major mobile games, one on the way and one already out, by other developers within their new umbrella, that have found the secret. And that is Call of Duty Mobile, making $30 million a day, and the upcoming Diablo Immortal, which closed beta is apparently going very well. So, and the amount of money that mobile games can generate is absolutely out of this world, which could then lead to more development funds for more games in these old franchises by more studios. And it's just, there's a lot to like as far as the mobile focus is concerned. I had the opportunity to write a piece for GameSpot, just a nice little feature op-ed sort of thing, about what this means for mobile gaming and Xbox. And I said, what could this purchase mean for the future? For starters, the Xbox Game Pass cloud library will certainly be bolstered with games from across Activision Blizzard, though exactly what remains to be seen. Imagine Diablo 2 playable on your phone thanks to Game Pass. Isn't that neat? As far as actual mobile games, we'd expect some of Xbox's biggest franchises to start appearing in app stores not long after the acquisition is finalized. We'd be keen on a mobile port of Halo Infinite's multiplayer, for example, Call of Duty Mobile, or maybe even a crossover of some kind between the two franchises. It's entirely possible. And this is just an added bonus for a company that was acquiring Activision Blizzard for more than just its mobile market, but it's a huge part of their business. King, I believe, made more than half of their profits for 2021. So that business is definitely booming like crazy. So making sure you remember the mobile part of this when you're thinking about all the different things that will be affected is big, because a lot of those games will then fund great projects that we want in the future. But there is a lot more to decipher from this deal. There's a lot more to ruminate over. Technically, we still don't know if it's even going to happen because we have to wait for the courts to decide. I do not expect that any wrongdoing will be found. I do not expect to hear anything about a monopoly. I think this is going to go through, and it's just going to be a massive, massive ripple affecting news story in the industry for a very, very, very long time. So stay tuned for that. And stay tuned for part 2 of episode 81 of Cheesesteaks and Controllers, when we talk about the esports side of things when it comes to this announcement. Stick around. All right, welcome back to Cheesesteaks and Controllers, episode number 81, the Xbox and Activision Blizzard acquisition special. The first 2 segments will be. We are going to do something different in segment number 3. Last segment, I talked about the overarching implications for the Xbox Activision deal across the entire industry. Didn't really focus it on anything. Did talk about mobile for a little bit, but I did really get into the more general things like Call of Duty and things like that. But now I want to get into something a little more hyper-focused, a little more nuanced, and a little more interesting as far as what I do is concerned. And that is the esports angle of this deal. Now, as you may know, obviously, Overwatch League is a thing, and Call of Duty League is a thing. Overwatch League is a big part of why this show exists, thanks to your team, your town, your Philadelphia Fusion. And the Call of Duty League, a stronger league in terms of viewership, but definitely one that is also one of the most important esports leagues in the world right now. Getting kicked off, actually, this weekend in the Kickoff Classic, I believe. So there'll be some pro Call of Duty Vanguard to watch this weekend. That's always nice. But their leagues, those 2 leagues, the Overwatch League and the Call of Duty League, are now under the control of Microsoft, just as the games are themselves. Microsoft obviously is also already running the Halo Championship Series, which has been, has resurged, has made a triumphant return to our eyes and ears ever since Halo Infinite came out. No surprise there. It's a competitive game. There are esports and people want to play them. Halo Infinite made perfect sense, and so far the format seems to be okay. Haven't really heard of any issues or complaints there, which is good, which is very good. But Microsoft now has itself an opportunity to become one of the leading developers, or publishers, or partners, whatever you want to call it, in all of esports. Completely. They could become the industry leader in a heartbeat. They now own 3 of the top leagues, or will own, I should say, 3 of the top leagues in the world. And also, they own Major League Gaming. They own that copyright. They own that franchise. They own that IP. So you could see, in theory, 18 months from now, I guess this would be the beginning of 2024 would be the best time to launch something new like this. A traveling esports series under the Major League Gaming banner featuring Overwatch, Call of Duty, Halo, maybe Forza, and maybe if a new Killer Instinct comes out between now and then, or some fighting game they could partner with to be the 5th competitive game. And it could travel to cities across the world, mostly North America, I would imagine, especially for Call of Duty League and Overwatch League's sake. But you could have a world audience at these events, sponsored by Major League Gaming, run by Xbox, that would fare a little bit better than what we're used to now. These segmented leagues are fine. It sometimes can be a lot to cover, but they won't, eventually you catch up and you move on from season to season. But having a streamlined, singular event where every weekend they pick a new city, they set up shop, each game is played in a different spot, and then they rotate it or whatever from city to city. You could have one city where Call of Duty is the highlighted tournament that week, or you could have one where Halo is the highlighted tournament that week. You can even have little small one-offs. You could pick a team in the Call of Duty League and theme an entire event off of them, which they already do with the homestands. But then you can include the other games in this bundle or in this event as part of the action. And you could have these massive multi-game festivals, basically EVO, every single week. That to me makes perfect sense. It would bring more esports fans together. It would allow more esports fans to experience other esports right there. It would increase the exposure of all things esports, not just Halo scene or Call of Duty scene or what have you. But it would make a lot of sense to me to put all these events in one spot and run them concurrently. And I do mean concurrently. You could not have an event where you started with Halo in the morning and then you moved to Call of Duty in the afternoon. You can do that. You can do that sort of. You can maybe have two running at once. Like, again, I go back to EVO as the example. EVO runs multiple tournaments and multiple games at multiple times, but they have the ability to either stream each one or they plan it so that the biggest events are either by themselves or they're up against smaller games that aren't out yet or haven't been removed from play or anything like that. So I just feel like, I guess my overarching point here is that there's a massive opportunity now for Xbox to become the leader in the clubhouse when it comes to competitive gaming. There is an absolute opportunity here that I hope somebody in that organization recognizes. I hope that whoever runs their Halo esports is looking at this like, oh man, we have Call of Duty now, or we have this game now, or Overwatch now. We're gonna have Overwatch 2 soon. We could have tournaments in maybe some classic games. Maybe we could do like Crash Bandicoot speedrun races. Excuse me. We could do Tony Hawk competitions. We could, have Hearthstone events here too. The list is as long as the list of franchises that are in existence. That's it. You wanted to have like a Candy Crush score tournament? Put that there too. Bringing all these IPs together, or most of these IPs together, in one competitive event with multiple winners across multiple games, it would be difficult to, it would be difficult to just have one winner. We're not going to do that. But having this tournament series would end up with a lot of exciting play. It would end up with a lot of eyes on the product. And it would end up with a lot of happy esports fans who have been here forever, or at the very least a couple of years, and are really jacked for things like the Overwatch League to start, but you don't know what that's going to look like now thanks to this rumor. I would like some reassurance from the leagues that they're going to go on as scheduled, that nothing else is in the pipeline here. I don't know that we're going to have that, but to me, Xbox esports is a bright future. One of the brightest futures as far as this deal goes within the parameters of the deal. The idea of a massive event with multiple games hosted by Xbox is tantalizing. I mean, if you're not amped up at the idea of watching Call of Duty League, Overwatch League, and say Hearthstone all in one event, or like I said, if you partner with another company, you could throw like Tekken or Street Fighter in there, all at one event. It's super cool. And if you don't think that's cool, I'm not sure why you would be listening to a show like this to begin with. But that is what I would do if I was in Xbox right now. I would be looking at that esports portfolio, looking to see how Xbox can, capitalize on these things, how they can move these things up, how they can make them a schedule, all this, whatever they're going to do to plan this new esports conglomerate event. I'm very excited to hear about it. Now, it might not be for a while. They might be focusing on other things before they focus on something like this. There are a lot of intangibles to work out, but for me personally, I feel like this approach, this idea of a like a hurt, not a hurt, this idea of an all-encompassing esports event following the games that Microsoft now owns, or the leagues that Microsoft now owns, is awesome. It's a super cool thought, a super cool idea, and one that I would very much like to see put into action. So there you go. That's the esports analysis for the Microsoft Activision deal. If you like what you heard, or if you have ideas for me, hit me up at Big Man Finelli on Twitter. Would love to hear your thoughts on this. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm silly. Tell me I sound like I'm really tired. Whatever it is you want to do, hit me up, and we will certainly chat. And with that, we have one more segment after this. Please stick around for a very cool review of something coming out very soon. All right, welcome back to the final segment of Cheesesteaks and Controllers, the Xbox and Activision merger edition. We're not going to talk about that anymore. It was very top-heavy in the first two segments of the show, talking about that, and from a general standpoint and from an esports standpoint. I would like to move on for the rest of the show and talk about a game I recently played for a review. If you listen to me on Sean Brace's show, I am not talking about the same game that I thought I was going to talk about there, because I think I need a little more time with that one. But I am going to talk about a game that I reviewed recently for MMORPG, and one that I am excited to talk about. But before we do that, we got to play the music. Yes, folks, welcome to Hot Off the Grill, the Cheesesteaks and Controllers review segment, where I take a game that recently came out, let you know everything you need to know about it, and talk about whether or not I recommend it or not. And today on the grill is Rainbow Six Extraction, a 3-player team-based cooperative shooter coming from the folks at Ubisoft that takes the Rainbow Six Siege format and characters and puts them in a situation where they're not dealing with other operators, they're dealing with a parasitic alien sort of threat called the Archaeans. And I gotta be honest, when I previously thought of franchises where I might talk about paranormal enemies, Rainbow Six was definitely not one of them. Siege has been one of the most consistent multiplayer shooters since it launched, and nothing in my eyes would be slowing that game down. As it turns out, this is true, but it doesn't mean that Ubisoft can't throw another game out to the masses, and here comes Rainbow Six Extraction, a game centered not on 5v5 multiplayer, but instead, like I said, teams of 3 against this parasitic threat. It is a unique game, but not necessarily for the better, and I will tell you why. Just running through what I wrote on MMORPG. You can also read it there at mmorpg.com. Support my good friend Joe Bradford, the editor-in-chief over there. So Extraction follows a simple format. You take a team of 3 players, up to 3. You can play solo or duo, and you can send them out on what's called an incursion. So it's a mission into this territory that is heavily contaminated with this parasitic threat. Each map of the 4, there are 12 maps, 3 in each of the 4 locations. You have New York, San Francisco, Anchorage, Alaska, and Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. And each of these areas have 3 different maps. Like New York, for example, has a police station, it has a market or like an apartment high-rise, and one other one that eludes my mind at the moment. Each of these maps is separated into what's called hot zones. And these hot zones are where you do your objectives. You're given 3 random objectives before you start an incursion, and then you get 1 when you first get there, and you complete that. Then you have the option to either leave, take your XP and go from the evac zone, or go through an airlock to the second section of the incursion, try that objective, and then make the choice again, either going deeper into the area for the third or getting out of there with the experience intact. Your health has to deal with a lot of has to do with the decision whether or not you leave, or your ammo supply or what have you. There are a lot of there's a lot of different thoughts that go into making that decision as to whether you should leave or not, and that's part of the perks of the game. The strategic element is very, very cool. A lot of the times just having the discussion with your squad mates, being like, do we have enough health for one more? Can we do this? Are we screwed? That back and forth is very tense and very, very neat. Unfortunately, though, a lot of that decision is informed by the health system, which I think stinks. So when you go into a incursion, your operator starts with 100 health. I call this white health. It's a white bar, 100. Pretty clear, pretty self-explanatory. You find health packs while you're out in the field. However, and when you have 100 health, if you find a health pack, you can go over 100. But when you do that, it gives you what I call blue health. And that blue health slowly deteriorates over time before it goes back down to 0. The problem I have is that if I were to lose health, if I were to get attacked, let's say, and lose 35 health, so I'm at 65 white health, 65 base health. And then as I'm going through, I find a health pack that has 50 health in it. Now, you would think that it would give me the 35 white health back and then add 15 more blue health as the extra health, and that would deplete. No. It just gives me 50 blue health to go with my 65 white health. So I'm still going to end up, should the blue health deteriorate to 0, with less than 100 health. What is the point of the health pack if it's just going to be like a quick stimulus that I could end up losing out of nowhere? That really did not gel with me. That part did not sit well with me. One of the few things that I did not like. But that part, the health management part of it, was just really, really, really weird. Playing through the entire game, unlocking everything it has to offer, and getting into the end game section, which is called the Maelstrom Protocol, which is just a very difficult version of what you've been already doing. Takes around 20 hours, meaning that the list of objectives that you're given in any incursion, the 3 different things that you have to do, that list gets short after a while. There aren't as many as you would hope. A lot of them have to do with collecting samples, whether you're getting those samples from the nests that spawn the Archaeans or the Archaeans themselves. One of them is luring a elite level Archaean to your evac point so it can be stunned and taken for research. Sometimes you're just marking the enemies on a field in an environment before you destroy them. It's just, there are enough missions to keep things interesting after a small while, but eventually when you start repeating the same ones or similar ones over and over again, it kind of wears thin just a little bit. But what I do like very, very much in this game, I think it's one of the coolest things about this game, is how it employs the lessons and the formats and the things that you've done in Siege since Rainbow Six Siege came out in 2015, and it changes them and adapts them into this situation while also making them very similar. And let me explain. If you haven't played Siege before, Siege is 5-on-5 multiplayer set in a location. You have 5 defenders of 2 high-value areas, where they're mostly bombs. And then you have 5 attackers who are coming in from different sides, trying to get in there and either eliminate the entire team, other opposing team, or defuse the bomb. Now, what makes this interesting is that before every round, there's a little, mini pre-round sort of time where players can, barricade windows or reinforce walls or put up turrets or put up cameras and just make it so that you're as strategic as humanly possible when the enemy players start coming in. Somehow, seamlessly, as you're traveling from hot zone to hot zone, Rainbow Six Extraction can sometimes make these things happen. And you don't realize you're doing it until you're halfway into it and you're like, whoa, I'm basically on defense in Siege. For example, one of the missions is to plant charges on this big tentacle arc-looking thing and protect them before they blow up. So you put the charge on, you have one person activated, and then the enemies start hoarding at you for a minute and a half or 2 minutes or whatever it is. But you can, before you even set it off, after you've cleared the room of enemies, you can go up to the windows and barricade them. You can reinforce some pretty weak walls. you can do all this. So that way, when it's time and you press the button that attracts the horde, you're at a huge advantage. You're defending. They have to break through the walls. They have to break through the windows. They have to get through all these obstacles to get to you. That's so cool. It's a really, really cool use of that old system, or of the original system. It's a clever adaptation of the format that I think is one of the best parts of the game, and I hope it's not overlooked by other reviewers. I didn't have a chance to read them because I wanted to get mine out, so didn't want any other reviews to influence what I was saying. In that vein, I also think it's cool how they use the operators from Rainbow Six Siege in this game. Now, everybody has a choice of operators. It's smaller to start, but eventually you unlock more people and what they can do. But they also, these operators, have the tools that they had in the previous game. Sledge has the hammer, can knock down walls in one shot. Pulse has the heartbeat sensor, can tell you when enemies are nearby. Things like that. Things that allow players who pick them to feel more comfortable because they play very similarly to what they are used to. Now, those slots can be changed. There are other things that they can do, but keeping them as the same sort of operator and the same format, just in a different setting, was a clever idea. And I think that makes the gate of entry lower for especially the fans of Rainbow Six Siege who may be familiar with it before, and familiar with these characters before. Some you have to unlock. There are a lot to unlock. I think it's like 16 or 20 operators total. But if you're like me, you're going to use Pulse and nobody else. So then what happens then is the next question. What happens when you lose one of your operators? When somebody goes down, when you thought you had enough health but you didn't, and you have to retreat or die or whatever. So when you lose a soldier, it goes into what's called in the game as stasis foam. It's basically this yellow foam that keeps them in place, and then you have to go find them. Well, where you find them is this giant black tree-looking thing with tentacles coming off of it, and you have to shoot the source of the tentacles before it gets to this tree and consumes your friend forever, basically. It's a interesting format, interesting little weird system. But what's cool about it is, say you're playing with a squad of 3 people that all lost different people. When you go into this mission, and you have the MIA mission that everyone needs to complete, everyone is trying to save not one hero that's missing, all 3 of them. So, for example, I could have Sledge, my friend could be Pulse, and my other friend could be Hibana. But in a previous round, we lost 3 others. We lost Sledge, we lost Ella, and we lost one other one. So I lost Sledge. When I go into the MIA part, even if somebody else finishes it, it brings Sledge back for me. When it's Ella's turn, even if I save Ella, it always goes back for that operator. So you're only seeing the operators that you have lost in this mode, should you not be able to do the whole thing. You're not picking up operators that you already have in your roster. You're not doing anything like that. You're simply trying to save the only the operator that you lost. So you never have to worry about the game, artificially inflating its difficulty or taking too long because it tried to make you save everybody instead of just yours. But so if I can get into my conclusion from my review on MMORPG, there is a decent amount of content here in Extraction, but nothing really strays away from the core, you're in hot zones, they're separated by airlocks. If you want to go. If you don't, that's fine too. Format. Dozen maps to explore and wage war with the Parasite in, but after a few matches, they become familiar, slightly redundant. I wish there was some more variety both in the maps or the objectives, and perhaps that's something we'll see down the line, especially if the way they supported Rainbow Six Siege after launch, if they do the same thing with Extraction, they're in good hands. Because right now, over-familiarity is an issue. It's not to say it's a bad game. It's not. It is fun. The drastic change in tone and structure from the other Rainbow Six game we've all come to enjoy is very cool, but it doesn't have a lot of lasting power. The different alien types, while seeming overly familiar compared to other video game monsters, are fun to fight and strategize against. The objectives are fun and tense, and the, quote, do we continue or leave now choice is always filled with some tension. I just wish there was more of this game to play, that the repetition of the game didn't set in so soon. This game is certainly worthy of the Rainbow Six moniker. I just don't know if it'll be laying siege to the other game's fan base anytime soon. So, my score over at MMORPG was a 7 out of 10. That is a good game by their scoring system. My pros are a tense white-knuckle team-based gameplay, employing strategies found in Siege, creating a sort of pseudo-offense and pseudo-defense, and then a variety of operators that give me plenty of ways to play. Whereas my cons are the list of objectives is shorter than it seems, which creates a bit of repetition. A few difficulty spikes can stack a game against you, and the health system seems slightly unfair. So there you have it, Rainbow Six Siege, getting a solid 7 out of 10 from me. If you have Xbox Game Pass, it is free to download on there, so check it out if you wish. You have all the time in the world, because I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon, especially being a brand new game. But it's definitely worth a try. I suggest you do that. And hopefully it'll keep being updated. It'll keep being supported. And eventually we'll have one of the premier shooter franchises having 2 great games in the future. So Rainbow Six Extraction, 7.0 out of 10. Good stuff there. And with that, we have reached the end of episode 81 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast, presented as always by Fox PHL The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, iHeartRadio, Apple Music, Spotify Podcasts, and Amazon Music. I am Jason Finelli, the esports and gaming insider for Fox PHL The Gambler. I hope that you enjoyed this episode this evening. I hope you're still reeling, or you're coming back from reeling, about Activision Blizzard. Hopefully next week there aren't any big acquisitions to talk about. We just have a small week with a bunch of normal stuff. But this is the gaming industry. You never can really guarantee that. So for everyone at Fox PHL The Gambler and for everyone on the Cheesesteaks and Controllers team, i.e. me, I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I hope you have a great week right behind it. And then we will be back next week with more of the biggest and brightest gaming and esports news for you. Goodbye, everybody.